people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, just waiting.
Lights out and away we go. It's a great start from Sebastian Vettel. Link up up the inside. McLaughlin gets it to space. They run, but the Red Bull Racing man has got through. The champion's done the job. They're all gone. They're all gone. Tander's off. McLaughlin's off. Make room. Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt. There's another 7-time champ. Jimmy Johnson wins his 7th NASCAR Sprint Cup championship.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon and good night to everybody who is watching around the globe on behalf of Short Shift Podcast, welcoming you to the AMS Oz Round 1 of the Formula 3 Championship. My name's Nether. I'm joined in the commentary box by Bagsy. Good evening to you, Bagsy.
Yeah, good evening, Nether. It's good to be here for the first F3 round for AMS Oz. It should end up being a pretty good race. So just looking at the early practice results, it's very tight amongst most of the field, so should be in for a good race here.
It is very tight amongst the field. You are correct. We're just on the back end of practice, and as we say that, time has expired for practice, and the person at the top of the charts at the moment by a mere 12/100ths of a second is Heath Dixon from Johnny, and Greg Nagel a further 3/10ths back. So it does look like it will be a tight fight at the top. Quite a number of guys have lodged 1:10. The first 6 guys have lodged 1:10, and the next 4 or 5 have lodged 1:11, so there's looking like there's going to be a couple of different packs forming when we shape up for these the first of these qualifying sessions that we're about to enter in the next few minutes. We are here at Santa Cruz do Sol. It's a Brazilian circuit. There's quite a number of circuits in Brazil. They're probably about the same length, somewhere in that 3 to 3.8 K range. This one's a 3.5 kilometre circuit. There's 6 right-hand bends, 9 left-hand bends. Camera shot you're just looking at now is of the main straight. And we've just ticked over into the practice, from practice into the qualifying session. And now we await to see which of the drivers are going to be the ones to come out and start to set the times. It's a 15-minute session. They've got a limitation of 15 laps to set their best time, and then we'll be on to the first of the 15-lap sprint races. Bagsy, from the early practice, would you suggest that probably Heath Dixon's the one to beat, or would you suggest that probably some of the guys that have been with the AMS Oz teamers for a while probably would be expected to perform better than what they have been?
It's probably difficult to say with this field, given it's the first race in the F3s, and a lot of the guys here have come from racing Porsches earlier in the week, so on a very different track as well in Monza. So it'll be interesting to see if those who went well in the Porsches can carry their form through, or if someone else will sort of stand up. People like Heathy and Johnny were back in the field in the Porsche races, but maybe these cars are a bit more to their liking.
Hope so. The light has just gone green. We've got a couple of guys have taken to the track. We've got Rambo's out on the circuit, Cory Ott's out there, and Grant English is out there as well. So they're the three, and as we say that, typical commentator's curse, round Rambo goes at turn number 1. But it's only an out lap, thank goodness, and not going to spoil any lap that he's about to set. Everyone just slowly starting to filter out into the track. It's not a mad rush. Only 4 runners out on circuit now, and now 5, as everyone just starts to decide, oh, it's time for me to get out and have a bit of a look at this. And we're expecting the lap times to probably be around that 1:10 to 1:11 mark, but that's just from the early qualifying, the early practice pace, I should say. Anyone who can dip under a 1:10 is going to have done an outstanding job to do so, but we'll wait with bated breath to see who can set the pole time for the next race.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with pole time, given that even though Heathy did have the fastest time, there was about 7 different people who in the top 20 lap times of the session, so it could go either way, depending on if you get a good lap, because we are fairly time limited here. Even though everyone has 15 laps, you've only got 15 minutes, which isn't, you don't have enough time to get around to do all those laps. So it'll be important about finding a space on track, putting in that lap time, and trying not to make any mistakes.
Well, thankfully, we do have a fair bit of space on this circuit. Every person I'm looking at as I cycle through the field to see where everyone's up to is unfortunately spinning. So a couple of guys just struggling to get to terms with these cars. As you rightly said, it is the first round of the season. There was a practice run that they did a couple of weeks back, which was at the Eastern Creek motor circuit. That wasn't for points. It was purely and simply a first test to see how everybody was going. A few people probably still haven't quite got a full grip on these cars. The circuit probably also not fully gripped up either. But we'll keep an eye on proceedings and we'll see how things go. Matthew Schwartz here.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, Matthew Schwartz here. He's a newcomer to the series. He hasn't raced in either of the Porsches or the V8 series that we've seen from him, so he's probably one of the lesser experienced guys in this field. Most of the other guys, as you pointed out before, have either come from Porsche racing background with the AMS Oz guys, or from the V8s, or in some cases even the GT3. So we'll see what everyone can manage as Schwartz comes around to start his first flying lap. English posted the first banker time as a 1 minute 13.0, but that's just the early pace in this time limited session.
Yeah, it's still 2 seconds off his best time, so he definitely knows he can go much faster than that. It's just sort of getting these cider laps in, and also, like I said earlier, finding that gap, which can be difficult.
We've just seen Jamie Snow jump to the top and probably setting what's more of a representative pace of the 1 minute 10.4. Jamie Snow, the one of the race winners in the Porsche race that took place on Thursday night, avoided a lot of the calamity that occurred and took a well-deserved win, and his first race or races with the AMS team, and he's thrown down the gauntlet to Hobson in that series, or will probably throw down the gauntlet to Hobson in that series. But he's up the pointy end of the field in this series as well, proving that he's no one-trick pony in the tin tops. He can also handle an open wheeler.
Yeah, dude. In fact, he was actually a second and a third he got in the Porsches. Lewis Wedding was the one who won both races in Monza.
Stand corrected. Thank you for correcting me.
But Jamie Snow was definitely there and thereabouts. I believe he had pole for one of the races, and third for the other race, and kept his nose clean and had some very strong form, which he'll be definitely hoping to carry into this race.
Hoping so. He's just set his second lap, a minute 10.5, only a tenth and a half off his best. He's just ahead of Heath Dixon, who was the early pace setter in the practice session, who's on a 1 minute 10.5. He comes to the line and does a 10.2, so he jumps to the top of the timesheets, only a tenth away from the practice time that he set, topping the times. He set a 1 minute 10.1 in practice. Pulling over to the side of the track. A couple of guys pulling over the side of the track, having either aborted some laps or happy with the lap that they have done. Return into the garage. Here's Lewis Wedding on the screen at the moment. Bagsy did mention that he was also up the pointy end of the field in the Porsche races on Thursday night. Beautiful red and white liveried F3 car here.
We've got a gaggle of cars coming onto the main straight at the moment. They're very close considering they're qualifying. It looks like they're almost racing at the moment. There
is a gaggle of cars on track at the minute as well. We've only got actually 4 or 5 guys that are in the pit lane at the minute. We've actually got 259 cars there. Well, Lewis Wedding's in one. We'll have to find out who the other one is. There'll be a couple of double ups. We have got a relatively full field for the first round, which is nice to see. We've got 17 runners in the field.
Snow is the other one in the 59.
Snow's the 59 as well. So, ironically, the 2 guys that were in the same cars in the Porsche race on Thursday night just gone are in the same F3 cars as well. Same livery, same number. And
it seems Harvey had a small accident. He's one of the front runners in the Porsches and managed to flip his car, but he's back on the track.
Well, Matt Williams just lost it. Just dropped the wheel on the grass as we were following there. Done a couple of 360s. Safely avoided contact with any banks or any other cars. But he's obviously going to have to abort that lap. Greg Nagel and Williams also running the same livery and same number cars. The 25 is their car number. Let's see if we can find anybody on the track at the minute who's about to do a hot lap.
I think Grant English was about to do a hot lap, but has managed to have a spin on the front straight, which is not ideal for him. He's back in the pits now, getting repairs done.
There are quite a number of people that have struggled to get to grips with these cars early, and everything. Here's Rambo. We've got Rambo who's just come through turn 1. We'll look at the. Oh no, he's not. Now he's just gone back to the pits. The commentator's curse, as per usual. Whenever we look at somebody, or whenever we tend to put the moz on somebody, we've determined this over the last couple of weeks. As we watched Brock Harvey have a massive moment going into the outside wall. As I was just saying, Bagsy, we've had a history of this, haven't we, about putting the moz on people, the old commentator's curse. Whenever we tend to be looking at somebody or talking about how well they're doing, they inevitably seem to prove us wrong and put themselves into a wall or into the back of another car, and doesn't make for very good TV viewing, does it?
It's been happening startlingly often. It's almost like the spotlight gets shone on people and they suddenly get blinded by it and go spinning off the track. But hopefully it doesn't happen so much this race, because we have also been watching some excellent battles between people, so it's not all bad. It's
not all bad, but you're right. There are just a few mistakes here and there that it just seems to come about at exactly the wrong moments whenever we seem to be watching cars going about and drivers going about their business. We're just watching Baker on screen at the moment. He's one of the representatives come across from the Apex Rear Wing, or ARW League, which runs on Wednesday nights, about to commence their Porsche series very, very shortly. Trying his hand in a Formula 3 open wheeler. Not a fan of the open wheel cars as Baker. He thought the Formula 1 series is a bit too quick for him. But the F3s are not that fast. They can still handle quite well. But interesting to see what experience he brings to the table. He's currently sat up in 7th at the minute. His best lap is a 1 minute 11.0. Let's see if he can improve on that when he comes to the line. He doesn't. He's 3/10 off, or nearly 3/10 off that PB. Looks like he's going for another lap, so let's go on board with him as he goes through turn 1. First left-hander down through the chicane, left and right down the hill, a little bit tricky. He comes up now to turns 4 and 5. This one seems to go on forever. Left-hander.
Yeah, it's difficult. If you get on the power too early here, you'll go spinning off into the scenery. You've got this small straight up coming up to turn 7, which can be an overtaking zone if you don't get it right coming out the corner. Have to be very careful on these curbs, very ginger, because once again, too much curb, round you go in these cars. They're very dangerous. Coming around turn 9 and a small dash into turn 10, which is another long left-hander. Once again, if you get on the power too early, you go spinning around, but you don't want to be too late on it because you'll lose so much time going through that corner. Sweeping turns of 12 and 13, and you're coming around to 14 here. Another quick burst down, pit entrance on your left there, final corner of 15, and then you're back down the straight to commence another lap of this wonderful circuit.
And we've actually just watched Baker improve his PB by just under a quarter of a second. That's good enough to move him, up the order to 6th from 7th place. Thankfully we can get
only 3 thousandths away from Williams as well, so he was that close to getting 5th there. He'll be kicking himself a little bit. Yeah, maybe if he could have gone the power a little bit earlier, one spot.
We just watched him horrendously back it into a wall there and lose half his car.
Yeah, there is a suspension and wing everywhere there, unfortunately.
There was. You're right, he was not far away from nailing Matt Williams for 5th place, and probably was just a little bit ginger on the power coming through that last turn. A couple of guys we've seen take that last turn flat out. A couple of guys may not have the confidence just yet to take it full throttle. As we're watching Matt Williams at the minute, currently in 5th. The man who just managed to stay ahead of Baker. He's some half a second off his PB at the minute. Just going a bit wide there at the last turn. We'll be keeping an eye on that throughout this race just to see how far everybody is pushing these cars. If you keep it at least 2 wheels in the white, or on the left-hand side of the white line, you should be fine. But there are a few people taking a little bit of liberties with some of the curbs, and we'll see if any of them get punished for doing so as the race wears on.
Actually, I believe it's after 4 track cuts you start getting drive-through penalties, I believe.
Yeah.
And yeah, drive-through penalties, especially in shorter races like we have here, certainly spell death to your podium and win chances usually. And yeah, you don't want that.
No, in such a short sprint race as well. Basically, a penalty for track cutting is exactly right. Certain disaster. We don't expect that there'll be any pit stops during this race unless it's for a damage repair. But having to serve a drive-through will basically cost you the race if you're in the gaggle of cars that will most likely be at the front of the field, judging by the time sheets at the minute. Snow's closed the gap to Heath Dixon to 0.05 of a second. It's still very, very close for that pole position, and then there's a couple of cars behind that are within 0.3. We've got Wedding and Johnny just behind him. We've got Williams and Baker, both have set 10.8s, and another couple of guys have set 10.9s, which was Cory Ott and Grant English. As we say that, Cory Ott's just posted a minute 10.8 as well, so he's not that far behind Baker as well. Couple of drivers at the pointy end are starting to heat up as we've got 2.5 minutes left in this session.
We've had a couple of people further back down, further through the laps. Jon Snow and I believe it was Nagel have had issues in the same corner, and Jon Snow was on a very fast lap, which has unfortunately come undone. He was probably going to take it to Heath on that lap, but unfortunately not. He will have time to get another one, perhaps 2 laps in if he's got the fuel and tyres for it.
Well, you're right. Basically, if you're not leaving the pits now, you're not going to have a chance of getting another lap in, and there are at least a half a dozen guys sitting in the pits at the minute. We're just following Cory Ott. He was up very slightly on his PB at Sector 1. Now he's gone 0.2 down in Sector 2. A couple of guys got managed to get out of the way for him, so he did have some clean track. But this lap is not looking like it's going to put him further up the grid. And as I say that, actually, he managed to pull it out in the last sector. He somehow found 0.3, and he vaults over both Baker and Williams into 5th place. So a very, very quick time, going down with a minute 10.7. Breaks those gaggle of 3 cars that have all done a minute 8. And he's pressing on here. He has to press on. He's got no choice. He can't quit back to the garage and go again, but he's actually aborting this lap. So that will be him done. Johnny Kerford now, recycle to him. Currently up in 4th place, very respectable 4th place. The minute 10.5. He comes through Sector 2 at the moment. Oh, just got out of shape on the curb there and lost it, and he won't set another time. That's him done. Lewis Wedding coming down to the final turn. Misses the apex, but stays on the track, tries to put the power down. This is his last flying lap. He's just commencing. He's not far behind the leaders. He's now... Actually, Heath Dixon's gone tantalisingly close to dipping under the 1 minute 10. He's done a 1 minute 10.042 at the very head of the field, so he'll have that carrot dangling in front of him that a minute 9's are within reach. Look at Lewis Wedding. He's a 10th up on his PB. But that's not good enough. He's going to need to find a little more pace than that if he wants to leap onto the front row.
Yeah, he needs another 10th to get to the front row, another 3/10 to be able to knock off Heath Dixon, who is still going quite well on... I know he's pulled into the pits, so Heath has aborted. That 1 minute 9 will remain elusive for the time being, but there is still another qualifying session for race 2, so who knows what will happen once the drivers know this track a little bit better. That
there is, and once it rubbers in some more too, it probably will be within reach. Just watching Wedding, he's managing those curbs beautifully, not taking too much curb, but he's dropped a fair bit of time in that second sector. He's down to nearly 2.5 down. He's just rooster-tailed through the grass at 14, sweeps through 15, takes the liberties with the curb. It doesn't give him a penalty, but that's his last lap. He does a minute 10.7, so he'll remain 3rd for this race. And looking through the field to see if we've got any other guys on track, but it looks like most of them have now quit back to the track, or quit back to the pit, sorry. And
the only person left was Brian Walsh, who has spun off the track, unfortunately, so that will be the end of the qualifying session.
That is, and it is a pole for Heath Dixon, tantalisingly close to going under the 1 minute 10 barrier. 1 minute 10.043 according to your screens there. 4.2 on our timing is rounded up, and he'll be starting on the front row. Jamie Snow will be starting alongside him. He ended up 2/10 down on Heath Dixon's pole time. But quite a number of guys that have moved into the minute 10 bracket and into the minute 11 bracket as well. And a couple of guys towards the back probably expect them to be a little bit on the slower side. Hopefully they won't end up being back markers for these guys, but it is a 15-lap sprint, so hopefully they'll stay out of trouble.
Yes, indeed. When jumping pretty much straight into the race here, we will have a formation lap for this race, so we'll be able to take you quickly through the order to hopefully give you some better views of who's where.
Absolutely. The first time that these guys are trialling a formation lap, and as we have our camera here, we have a look down this long pit straight. The pits is very interesting, actually. The pit lane and the start-finish line actually end at the same point at the pit exit, so you aren't actually classified as having completed a lap. At most circuits, you will be classified as having completed a lap if you're halfway through the pits, because that's where the start-finish line tends to be. But not in this case. The start-finish line is actually at the pit exit. Very unusual design for a Brazilian circuit. So we'll take you through the field. Here's Heath Dixon, number 34, Luminous Engineering car. He's on the pole. Jamie Snow, Granado Racing, the number 59. He's in second, followed by the same liveried car, same car number for Lewis Wedding, starting third. Johnny, Power On Racing, he starts fourth. Cory Ott, he popped up a couple of weeks ago and had a very, very solid result both races in the Porsche series.
Wedding has gone very wide onto the grass in the formation lap.
Yeah, we did see him just recovering through the background. He's recovering through the background, and he's going to have to get himself back up to the head of the field very quickly here. So we continue to cycle through. Here's Greg Nagel, another one of the Porsche runners. He's starting 6th. Similarly liveried car behind him, Matt Williams starting 7th. Baker will start 8th. Prop Racing, yellow and white and red car. There's Grant English. He's going to start 9th. Matthew Swash, the newcomer to the AMS series, he's going to start 10th. That's a very respectable starting point for his first race at the AMS Australia League. Luke starts in 11th. We've got Brock Harvey starting a little bit further down the field than he'd probably like to. He's in 12th. We've got David Keane starting 13th. The number 31 Tivex Motorsport. Rambo just recently joined, started the Porsches the other night, starting 14th. Cracker starting from 15th. Brian Walsh will be 16th, and we've got Voda. He's bringing up the rear in 17th. So we're just waiting. Here's Heath Dixon. He's just overshot his pit box. He's going to have to go back a little bit further, I think. And Lewis Wedding's recovered to the start position for him after that off during qualifying, during the warm-up lap. But we're about to get underway here, and we're looking through the track. Everything is clear. We're watching the pole sitter. I think pole sitter might have to move back a little bit here. We're wondering, it's a long time before they're trying to release this field. Everyone's in line.
It's almost showtime. Good luck out there, mate.
Here we go. The revs rise, the lights are going, and it's the green flag. And it was an average start from Heath Dixon, but he's lost out on the inside. Got a much better start was Jamie Snow. Snow's gone through to the lead here. We're just watching back just to make sure everyone's giving themselves enough for him. We have had a few bad starts throughout this the AMS series. There's Cory Ott, one's wide, and just came back on just in front of Johnny. And just a little tap, but it looks clean. And apart from a few guys that are taking a little trip across the grass, but it looks like everyone's got through the first few turns unscathed.
Yeah, Grant English was one of those running wide on the grass. He's lost a couple of positions from the start. He's sort of getting swamped by everyone towards the back there. But it was a relatively clean start overall, especially when compared to the Porsche race the other night. So it was very good. These cars obviously a bit more fragile. People are being a bit more careful.
And that's one thing we'll have to look out for. Anybody that gets a little bit of damage, it will hurt these cars quite substantially. You can't run it. Sorry, go on.
Sorry to cut across you a little bit further back in the field. Grant English has spun and it's caused quite the pile-up, unfortunately. Several cars damaged.
Yeah, you can look here. We're just seeing Rambo's lost a rear wing. He's lost a front wing. Grant English is continuing on. Looks like he's got a bit of damage, but it looks like, unfortunately, Rambo's going to try and somehow get back to the pits. That's a lot of damage on that car. I don't think we will see him feature as at all for the remainder of this race. He's actually struggling to get that back to the pits. We'll go back to the lead of the race because Jamie Snow got the whole shot. Heath Dixon had a bit of an average start. He had an average first phase of the start and couldn't get it hooked up in the second phase, and Snow had the inside line to turn 1, and he's gone. He's now out to nearly just on a second lead. And this guy's going to be hard to catch. He proved at the Porsche races on Thursday night that he was definitely one of the front runners and intends to be a front runner, and he's showing a clean set of heels now. Heath Dixon's got work to do.
Yeah, he does. It's Jamie Snow is making hay while the sun shines, and is going to try to pull out that lead so he doesn't have any issues from behind, and so that any small mistakes that might be made don't cost him the race lead. But he'll be determined to have a win after a mistake cost him the Porsche win the other week.
It did cost him a Porsche win. We've also lost. We've actually lost Irambo to retirement. Also, David Keane. He was another one of the cars caught up in that little melee on the opening lap. So we'll put the moz on a few people. It was a clean start to the race, but it wasn't a clean full lap of the race. As we look at Wedding, who's defending from Johnny here on the main straight, they'll line astern. Johnny's having a look around the outside here. He's probably not going to be able to hold that. And side by side, they bang wheels. Johnny actually has held on with it. Wedding didn't want to relinquish the position, but unfortunately he had to. Johnny made that move stick. So that was a very, very good piece of driving from both drivers to not come to blows there. But Lewis Wedding's lost out. He's moved down a spot. Johnny Kerford moves forward. And he'll be hot on the heels of Cory Ott, hopefully, without too much ado.
Yeah, Louis Wedding was like, no, you're not coming through here, and Johnny said, you can try close that door as much as you want, I am putting my car through here anyway. He was able to get on the power earlier, and just had the better line through the chicane. It was quite a good move from Johnny. He lined it up coming out of the final corner, got in the slipstream, got to the outside of him, and made it work.
He did make it work, and we've just actually seen Matthew Schwartz move forward as well. He's overtaken Baker and moved up to 8th place, so that's a 2-position gain from his original starting slot. He's got a couple of seconds to make up to, is it Matt Williams? Yes, it's Matt Williams who's the next car for him. And just goes a little bit wide there at the turn 15.
Back up at the front, Jamie Snow has lost a bit of time to Heath Dixon. Heath Dixon has closed into within 4/10, which is he's coming to his own. He's got those tyres warmed up. He's got his brakes warmed up. After that poor start, he's after James' blood.
He is. You're right. That gap at the front has halved, and this might put Heath Dixon within. If he can stay with him for the balance of this lap and just close in a little bit more, he might be in line for a slipstream down that straight. That opportunity to pass into turn number 1, as we've seen from Johnny and Lewis Wedding, is probably the prime spot to make an overtaking move. Although we did see it also through the turn 2-3 chicane, which is not a common passing spot. But Snow needs to get the power down here. He needs to get a break. He's coming through turn 14 now. Oh, just caught a little bit of grass. Takes this corner relatively flat.
Louis grass, but he has pulled out a small amount of time, which is probably just enough to break that slipstream on Heath. He is closing in, and John Stowe's he's pulling off to the side just so Heath doesn't have that slipstream. It seems like Heath is a lot better on the brakes than Snow.
And he was there too. He got very, very close under braking for turn number 1. And Dixon smells blood here. He is like a shark in the water. You can see that red and white car ahead of him. Looks like blood, and he's after it. We'll leave that battle alone for a minute. Let's have a look through the rest of the field, and let's see if we can see what everybody else is up to. Here's Cory Ott. He's trying to hang on to this lead duo in 3rd place, but just can't bridge that gap at the moment. He's also just trying to stay ahead of Johnny, who's cleared away from Lewis Wedding by a second since that overtaking manoeuvre, and is hunting down the 3rd place man Cory Ott at the moment. We've just seen on the timing screens there's been another change of position a bit further back. Baker has overtaken Schwartz again for 8th place, so that sets to be a nicely shaping up battle. Let's go back to them. There's Baker, and he's actually got a fairly decent gap on Matthew Schwartz now, so we suspect that Schwartz probably made a mistake. We didn't see where it was, but we did see the timing screens adjust. In actual fact, Rambo and Keane have rejoined the circuit, so I do apologise. They were marked up in the pits for some time, some stage longer than what we expected they were. They're actually back out on track according to our timing screen, so they didn't retire after all. I do apologise. But they are considerably behind all the other runners, and I think they'll probably treat this as a practice session.
You think so, but they are duking it out quite considerably, to be honest. They're hammer and tongs with each other, despite it being for 16th and 17th place.
You're right, here they are. And in actual fact, David Keane's getting the blue flag here. Who's that man that's behind him at the minute? I believe that looks like it could be Cory Ott.
It is Ott, yes.
It is Cory Ott. So Cory Ott's going to have to find a way to get past these guys, and Keane's going to have to relinquish very, very soon. That's allowed Rambo to clear away a little bit too.
Oh no, Ott and Keane have collided.
We did see it in the background, and that's disaster for Cory Ott. He's actually was ahead of, who was it there on the timing screens? He was ahead of Johnny now. Has Johnny managed to get through? It doesn't look like he has from the timing screens, but there's Ott again. Actually, Ott's just gone through, had another run through the grass, so hopefully he's going to be able to continue.
Sorry, I believe I misidentified Ott and Luke. Ott and Luke have the same livery, and
Luke, sorry.
Luke, I believe, that had the collision.
All right, so it was Luke that had the collision. Cory Ott is safe. Well, that's very reassuring.
Apologies to all the Ott fans out there.
Apologies to the fans indeed. Here's Jamie Snow. He's still hanging on to this first place. Dixon just can't manage to bridge that gap. It's staying at around 5, 6, 7 tenths at the moment. They're still duking it out as they head up towards turn 10.
The gap blew out to about it blew out to about 1.5 seconds earlier, as Heath had a moment going through turn 10. He just got a little bit of oversteer on and almost lost the back of the car, which allowed Jamie to get a little bit of extra space on him, but over the last 2 laps he's closed it up again and he's piling that pressure back on. It'll be interesting to see if Jamie will hold up or if he'll crack under the pressure.
Jamie always seems to have about a half a second gap when he comes out of the last turn, and it always seems to be enough to keep him at the front of the field going into turn 1. He's gone defensive here, he's gone a shallower line. You see Heath Dixon closes right up and he's right under the rear wing now. We've had a spinner in the back, just a spinner in the back of the field. Now that was Cory Ott. That was Cory Ott that time. It was this time. We have got him this time, and he's lost 4 positions. He's gone from 3rd all the way down to 7th. That promotes Johnny onto the podium as it stands right now. He was hunting down Ott, couldn't quite bridge that gap, but now he's got a bit of clean air, and he'll be able to see the 2 leaders at the front battling away, and hoping that if these guys come to blows, that he might be able to catch up and also put the pressure on.
It's interesting because Jamie is taking a much more defensive line, probably more defensive than he needs to given the gap on the main straight, and that's allowing Heathy to catch up to within 2 tenths. But then through all these twisty sections, Jamie seems to have the much better car, much better pace. He's able to commit a bit more of these corners, and he's just able to drag it out a bit, which means that even though Heathy's much better on the brakes into turn 1, he's not able to make the move stick.
Heath seems to have a bit of a better run off of the last turn as well. He gets a little bit of tow from the slipstream. He's obviously not as close as he wants to be, but you're right, going into turn 1 he is a lot better on the brakes, but Jamie Snow has got him covered in that technical infield section from turn 8 right through till about turn 13, and just seems to give himself enough of a gap to keep him at the front of this field. But Heath's not going to give up. They're on lap 9, so they haven't over halfway, and they'll be looking for the next opportunity again down into turn number 1. So Heath's staying with him here. You can see the gap has come down to about 3 and a bit tenths, but Heath's made a bit of a mistake, and it drops away a little bit. Now he gets it back, so the gap is always seesawing. This is where Jamie seems to have him covered through this sweeping double apex of turn 10 and 11.
It's a wonderful back and forth between these two. It's nice to have a nice close battle like this, that with both drivers giving and taking as we go around the circuit. It's still all up for grabs. There's 6 laps to go, and we're no closer to knowing who the victor of this race will be.
No.
And if these two come to blows, not only is Johnny behind them, but 4th, 5th and 6th are all within a couple of seconds of this leading battle, and they all have the potential to get a podium or a win if the front runners come to blows.
They do. It's interesting, we just saw on the pop-up on the screen that Jamie Snow's best lap is 1 minute 10.5, and he did a 1 minute 11 that time around. Heath Dixon actually does own the best lap. He is a 1 minute 10.4 for this race, so not that about 4 tenths off his qualifying time, but try as he might, that 10.4 is not enough to bridge the gap. He's not doing it consistently enough to be able to bridge that gap.
Yeah, it will also be the dirty air that he has from following Jamie will be causing some issues for him.
Jamie just had a little wiggle there through the exit of turn number 9. And this is a bit closer this time through the infield section.
Yeah, once again, it can be so difficult to follow in these cars because they are very aero dependent, but they are much simpler aero than say an F1 car, which makes it almost impossible to follow closely. These cars are a little bit better, well, a lot better to be honest, but you do still get that sort of lightening of the front as Jamie goes very defensive.
Extremely defensive. That's a very, very strange line. He went almost all the way to the pit wall, probably unnecessarily too.
Determined to not let Heath have the slipstream, and Heath decided, I'm just going to stay on the racing line because it's going to gain me time because I'm not weaving all over the track. So
that is true.
So
we're going to
more power to Jamie, but I don't think it will help him that much.
No, we're going to have a quick look back through the field to see here. Here's Greg Nagel. He's in 4th place, all on his own at the moment. A couple of seconds to Johnny ahead of him, and Cory Ott, who's recovered after that spin. He's actually recovered from 7th back up to 5th, so driving very, very well. So hopefully he'll be able to get up and battle here with Greg Nagel for 4th place, but I don't think he'll catch Johnny in time to regain his original position of 3rd before he spun out. That battle pack you were referring to, Bagsy, before for 4th, 5th and 6th just seems to have split up a little bit ever since Cory Ott managed to get through them all and now back into 5th place.
I believe Matt Williams made a mistake at some point because he's dropped off from this pack.
He has.
That's why.
He's right back there at the moment. And actually Matthew Schwartz has managed to get himself back up to 8th after his little battle with Baker early on, which he managed to get to 8th, went back down to 9th, and then back up to 8th again.
Oh, back in the front, Jamie has had a very big moment coming out of the first corner, and Heath is right back on him now.
There we are.
You can get the cameras on that.
We are watching that battle.
It was coming out of the first corner. He got the rear right out and almost lost it, but managed to hold on and managed to keep Heath behind him. But Heath very almost got his nose chopped off as well, but thought better of it. But that will give him confidence because he knows those mistakes are possible now. He's got that feeling. He's got that, I can go for this and I can get this, and he'll be gripping that steering wheel quite tight and just trying to keep piling on that pressure.
He will be piling on the pressure. It's still that half a second gap. Jamie always seems to have him covered when he needs to have him covered. They're actually now coming up to some lap traffic, so this may play into Heath Dixon's hands. Heath going very, very wide at the last turn. Still carries the speed, and now
it's Cracker and Voda that they're coming up to, who are having a battle of their own.
They are having a battle of their own.
13.
These are the guys that were toward the back of the field doing minute 14s and minute 16 lap times, which is better than their qualifying times, but nonetheless they are at the back of the field. And Jamie manages to get through very, very cleanly there. In actual fact, that looks like it might have hampered Heath Dixon a little bit. Just lost a couple of tenths navigating that traffic. But they pull off the circuit here and give them the right line. It's good. Actually, Heath closes up quite substantially, getting past, who was that one there? Or getting past, it was Cracker that time, I think, and Voda. They've got through the pair of them. Oh, Jamie Snow's gone round. Jamie Snow went round all of his own. I'm not sure what happened. Just probably gone the power a little bit too early. He's actually lost 2nd place to Johnny as well. Now there goes Cory Ott. So Ott's back into a 3rd place podium position where he was. Jamie Snow's down to 4th. He's got Greg Nagel all over his rear wing. I'm not sure what happened. It just looked like going to power a little bit too early there, Bagsy.
Yeah, he just got on the power a little bit too early. It was just that pressure finally got to him, I think. It was Heathy was been piling it on for the whole race. I believe it was just he was coming through turn 9 or turn 8. Sorry, he got on that power a little bit too fast. And
yeah, it was definitely turn 8, and Heath was right there. They just finished navigating the lap traffic, and around she went. So now Snow's got it all to do. Kenny locks up into turn 1, goes a bit wide as well. He's got it all to do to try and reel in Cory Ott. Now that's probably the best the best chance he has of getting onto the podium is 3rd. Nagel's not going to let him go away. He's got a little carrot in front of him now. Snow's making all sorts of mistakes at the minute. There's a few lock-ups in the last few turns. That'll give incentive to Nagel behind him. And Baker's just eyeing off this pair. He's about 1.5 seconds behind. And look at this.
Yeah, Jamie's gotten into his own head now, and he's struggling a bit. Now that he's made that one mistake, he's going to be trying to painstakingly hit all those apexes and brake markers so he doesn't do it again, because if he does it again, there's even more places to lose, because the field for the top 7 or 8 is still so very close. And he'll be ruining the fact that he's not going to be able to get the win now, as Heathy comes on to start the final lap of this race all by himself now. He's got 3-second margin, so if he keeps his nose clean, this should be a nice easy win for him.
It is. It's the last lap, sponsored by the ARW 6-hour endurance race of Spa, happening in May. If you would like more information, go to the Facebook page and look up Apex Rear Wing. Dixon has a 3.5-second margin on Johnny at the moment. He's just probably eased off a little bit. Johnny's margin is, or gap is coming back, so he's just taking it quietly on this lap. As he said, all on his own, got plenty of margin, plenty of clean air.
Yeah, you've got to be careful that you don't slow up too much. You start to lose heat in the brakes and tyres, and you'll start to have lockups and make mistakes of your own, and suddenly you're looking the wrong way and someone else has taken your hard-won victory. So, yeah, you've got to, can't be too careful. Just got to be the right amount of careful.
The right amount of
always
careful.
hard to explain to a racing driver.
It's an interesting analogy, the right amount of careful. You've got to maintain that rhythm, but not get out of it too much, otherwise you're exactly right. You will lose it. Through turn 14. And now through turn 15, the pole sitter had a battle on his hands. Unfortunately, it was a mistake to Jamie Snow that's handed Heath Dixon the win, but it's a win nonetheless. Johnny finishes second, and the battle for third has been settled in the favour of Cory Ott, and Jamie Snow will take fourth, Nagel fifth, Baker finishes in sixth. Matthew Schwartz has actually moved up to 7th. Now, we're not sure who he's puzzled. It looks like it's Matt Williams, another mistake, but that's a fantastic result for the debutant. Up 3 positions from where he qualified, and he finishes in 7th. In actual fact, Williams is battling here. I think it looks like it might be with lap traffic, potentially.
I believe it is. Oh, no, that is for position.
No, that was a position? No, it wasn't for position.
No, sorry.
It was Luke. It wasn't position.
My apologies.
So, just battling the lap
mixing
traffic.
up liveries again.
Yes, there's a few teams that are, a few cars that are running the same liveries and the same car numbers, so it does make it a little bit difficult to work out who is who. And here comes Luke. He's going to finish in 10th. Harvey dropped down, got up the field, but then has dropped back a little bit, so he finishes in 11th place. Brock Harvey at this stage to join us for some commentary for race number 2. And we're just waiting for the last few runners to finish. His photo on screen at the moment. He's the 12th
yeah, I believe that
finisher.
everyone has crossed the line now.
Everyone looks like they've crossed the line, including the lapped runners. Everyone's going quite slowly. But your race winner is Heath Dixon. So I think that I think it might be fair to say that is probably, I think it is Heath Dixon's first win in the AMS Australia series of any nature. He's had a couple of good Porsche races, a couple of good results, but this is his first pole and his first win.
He's completed the double so far. We'll see if he can maintain his pace for race 2 for qualifying and the race. He was on it the whole time. His lap times were very consistent, even being directly behind the car of Jamie Snow. And we've actually got Heathy in the box here for a quick interview. Heathy, that was you didn't get the best start, but you've come through in the end.
No, classic Heath start there, if I do say so myself. But, yeah, just had to wait.
Just had to wait and be very, very patient. You had a bit of as we said, you had a bit of an ordinary start, and Jamie had the high ground on you into turn number 1. And for most of that race, you just struggled to bridge that gap, that 4, 5, 6 tenths of a second gap. Just following through the technical sections are probably just a little bit difficult.
No, just sort of trying to keep my distance in case Jamie did loop it, and I didn't want to run into him, and or if he had a little bit of a moment, I didn't want to hit him and cause him to go right around. So I just thought I'd keep my distance a little bit and just wait and see what happened.
Okay, and in the end, he actually he did it all on his own, and just after he navigated some lap traffic. So unfortunately for him, we were robbed of what could have been a very entertaining battle to the flag, but nonetheless, it's been settled in your favour.
It has, yeah. So you've done well, Jamie, to stay ahead so long and put the pressure on you there.
And was it fair? Sorry, go on, Bagsy.
We do also have Jamie here with us. Jamie, you led quite well for most of that race, and just in the last couple of laps, unfortunately had that spin. Was it the lap traffic that sort of did you in a bit, or was it just all on your lonesome that you managed to spin it?
No, that was all my fault. My tyres were pretty much shot, so I think I just pushed a little bit hard too early and cooked the tyres and just couldn't keep the car underneath me. So it's a shame because it would have been a great battle in those last couple of laps. But yeah, I think I'm going to end up with a bit of a reputation for myself here, getting out for a lead and then throwing it all away.
Well, you've certainly demonstrated this race that you can hold your own at the front, and you demonstrated on Thursday night that you can certainly be up there with the front runners in the Porsche series. So I think your reputation's already been established as someone who will be up the pointy end of the field for most of your races. How have you come to grips with the car relatively quickly, because you've only been using a wheel, you last reported, for about a month, and obviously adapting between the cars probably has their own challenges, from the Porsches to the open wheelers. How do you find the change between the two?
Yeah, look, they're vastly different cars, of course. This car I've actually done quite a lot of practice. I probably did around 100 laps or so, just in private testing and in a practice session yesterday. So taking a little bit to get to grips with it, but geez, it's a fun car to drive.
They are indeed fun cars to drive. Bagsy and I will attest to those, and actually Heath as well, because we've done an F3 series of our own. Granted, it was some time ago, back in the stock car extreme days, but we can certainly appreciate what it is like to drive these cars. They can be a handful if you don't treat them right, but they can also be an absolute joy to drive when you get it spot on.
Yeah, that sort of seems like to me as well. You know, it's very easy to push them over the limit, but when you're sitting right on that limit, they're just great fun.
It certainly looks like it was fun from our angle. You had that gap just could not get anything greater than about 6-7 tenths of a second for most of that race, and our eyes were fixed on it the entire race. But towards the end, as Bagsy pointed out, robbed of probably what would have been a great finish. But let's see if you can make it happen in race number 2, because we'd certainly want to see a scintillating battle like we did.
Yeah, looking forward to a great battle with the guys in race 2 for sure.
Appreciate it, Jamie. Thanks, Jamie, and thanks, Heath. We'll watch with interest in this next race. We've got another qualifying session coming up very, very shortly. I think we're just waiting for a couple of people to load back in, and then we'll get the next qualifying session underway.
We've also, just quickly, we've got Cory Ott in here, who rounded out the podium. Cory, you had almost an anonymous race because we were too busy looking at the battle at the front, but you made a couple of good passes and kept your nose clean. How did you feel for the race?
Oh, well, I was up there in the third, I was up there podium, watching the two guys up front battling, and I spotted at turn 1, didn't really feel right, dropped back to 7th and then powered my way through the field. But yeah, the tyres, the front, especially that right front, was just getting hotter and hotter and hotter. It was, I think, one point we got it up to 130 through that last corner. It was all about trying to keep the tyres, cool enough to get through the middle sector, and then once you've got that, the last corner, it's just, you could get it through, but that right front was getting warm as crap. But yeah, it was a good race there with all the boys, but not really. I could have went for the win, but yeah, tyres were not really my best shot at it.
You're right about the right front tyre, Cory. It's predominantly a left-hand turn circuit, this one, and especially a lot of the left-hand bends are very, very loaded corners. They're either medium to high-speed corners. Tell me about turn 15. You're saying you're struggling a little bit with turn 15. Is it a flat corner? Because a lot of the guys that we've seen, some of them do take it flat. Some of them tend to just baby it around the corner a little bit, perhaps looking after the tyre, as you've also mentioned.
Oh, it's for me, it's flat through and through. I would earlier tonight in the practice session, I was babying it through, but yeah, just when you get the aero in check, I just was flat through it. But I could baby it through there, preserve the tyres, but you're in a race, you don't preserve anything, you go for it.
You're exactly right. You've got to go for it. We've just seen a few people that have been a little bit tentative through there. We're just not sure if it's a confidence thing or if it is to balance out the tyres. But being, as I said, a predominantly left-hand bend circuit, right-hand bend circuit, where most of the loaded tyre is that right-hand front, it does seem to cop a fair bit of a pounding.
Yeah, exactly, and that left tyre as well during that formation lap, you try and warm that thing up, and then 10 laps in, you're like, why should I bother warming up the left side at all when you've got so many right-hand corners that are, left-hand corners that are so loaded on the right side, you don't need to, warm up that left at all, because the left doesn't come into play until, the left-right chicane there on your first lap, so, yeah.
Tell us about your little incident that you had, because you were right up there in third place, and was it of your own doing that you lost it, or were you you missed your line, or what happened to you? Because you got all the way down to 7th, and then you managed to power your way, as you said, back through the field, and you did end up on the podium back in 3rd at the end of the day.
Yeah, I was pretty lucky to get that podium, but it was weird because I went through the corner as usual, hit the throttle, and the rear just stepped out. I was surprised it did. I was midway chatting with Jamie there, and the rear just went through turn 1, hit the throttle, stepped out on me, and I was like, oh, and I've spun, and, just gathered it back up and went for it. So.
I think, is it fair to say, Bagsy, that we've seen quite a few of the losers or the losses that people have encountered have been in the rear end going around. We haven't seen much from a front end point of view. It's either people getting on the power a bit too early, or just a bit of rear end stability loss. Would I be fair?
Yeah, it's also been people who have been getting wide onto the curbs, and then that's been helping the rear round. We saw in Bahrain where Verstappen got on the power too early, and then got on the curb, and that exacerbated spin. That's what's sort of been happening here as well. People have been getting on the power a bit too early, and then hitting something slippery like the curb or the grass, and that's sent them entirely around and not really able to save it.
Oh, can I add in there as well? Middle sector, that the slowest part of that circuit. It's so where the curb is. We've all I did it myself as well. Where you've got that, you're on the curb, and then you're turning in, getting ready for that right-hander, and the curb ends halfway down that little tiny straight. So you're turning in, you're focused on that apex, and the rear just hits the grass. The tiniest amount of grass from the rear just steps out on you. It surprises you a lot. So
we have seen a couple of people presenting a few rooster tails through the grass on some of those exit curbs. You're absolutely right. I think the turns that you're referring to is probably the turn 7 and 8, which is a left-hander, and then a slow left-hander and a slow sort of sweeping right-hander. That's on the infield of the course in that second sector that you pointed out, and that's where we actually saw the exit of turn 8, where Jamie looped it round and handed the win to Heath Dixon a couple of laps from home. So it does seem to be a rather tricky spot down there.
Yeah, there's also, like, I was having a problem myself, but also as well, the next corner up, that curb, if you were really pushing it through there, it's also another one of those, you hit the grass and you're done. Like, twice in practice I had it done, just hit the grass, spin it 360. You could keep going, but you never know, you have someone behind you, you could have a 2-car accident right there waiting for it to happen.
Well, we're thankful that we didn't see any major incidents in that race like we did on the Porsche on Thursday night. Cory, thanks for your time, buddy, and best of luck in the next race for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Still sitting up here in practice. We're just waiting for this server to tick over into the next qualifying session, which will be another 15-minute, 15-lap limited shootout before the second of the 15-lap races. Don't go anywhere.
Yeah, when you're ready, Steve.
Sorry, who was that?
Brocky, mate.
Oh, g'day, Brock. How you going, mate? How was your race in that first runabout? You had a bit of you sort of qualified a bit further down than what we're used to seeing you.
Yeah, just don't like the aero sensitiveness of some of these cars. The open wheel. I just can't wrap my head around it in a sim when you can't feel the aero. So, yeah, that's pretty much what happened. Like, I think I qualified 12th. I was up to 8th for the first 2 corners. and then I spun on lap 2, and then I spun again on lap 9, and then I landed on lap 14. So, a great race.
Sounds like it was an absolute fun race. We were watching one hell of a battle up the front there with Heath and Jamie for the win. Unfortunately, it was an error to Jamie that handed it to Heath in the end. He probably had him covered for most of it off the start, but in the end, the pole sitter was the victor. We're just waiting, obviously, now to see everybody load back into the server, and then the server to tick over into qualifying 2. I take it we're not too far away from that.
No, they're voting now, so we should be good to go soon.
All right, beautiful. Now, Brock, seeing you're an admin here for the AMS Australia, can you give us a rundown on the point system for the F3s? How's that going to be handled?
Same as the Porsche Cup and the supercars, really. We've got it set at 25 points for a win. Then goes down in increments of 3 until you're in 5th. Then in 2s and then in 1s to finish it all off. So Jamie would be pretty happy making round 1 of this, or old snowballs, I reckon, because yeah, he's pretty quick. As we're finding out really quickly, is he doesn't hold back, and he seems to know how to race as well. So yeah, at least now he's got a real chance of winning a championship. Coming late to the Porsche Cup, he's going to struggle a little bit, but this one, I think this and the GT3s, because I raced him in the GT3 quite closely, and he did really well. So yeah.
Beautiful. Well, it has ticked over to qualifying. The 15-minute time limit has not started yet, but we've already got a few cars on the track. Rambo's out there, and I think Cracker is also out there as well. I'm not sure if these guys' laps are going to count or not. I will tell. Actually, time has just started now, so hopefully they will count.
Yeah, I think they were a bit misled because the light at the end of the pit lane is showing green before the session actually started. So hopefully their laps count here. It was it wasn't intentional from them, just a bit of a equipment malfunction at the track by the looks of it.
Them damn Brazilians.
We'll have to talk to the stewards out there and see what's going on with them.
Well, nonetheless, Rambo is the first man that will be coming to the line to try and set representative time. He's coming
Just
down.
in case you're wondering, mate, I've got the point structure here again, if you wanted me to go through it all again.
Beautiful. Well, we'd like to probably get that point structure down, I believe, because we're going to need to take the totals from race 1 and race 2, and then we'll be able to work out who will be leading the championship at the end of the night's second race.
I am in the process of doing that as we speak, so
right.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So you're going to be our points admin for the remainder of the race.
I'm the points admin for everything else, mate, so why not?
Why not? Now, I'm just watching Rambo always as he loops it, but his time did not register. So I dare say that he was not in a position where, crossing the timing loop, he was going to register a time being first out of the pits. So keep an eye out and see who's got times running. I think, well, there's Baker. He's off on the grass. He's done something all on his own. He's not going to settle a time.
Looks like Grant English is the first person on track who's actually setting a time.
All right, so we'll cross the Grant English as he comes up here to turn number 5, this big 180-degree left-hander, followed by a short blast through turn 6, the right-hander. Taking a little bit of curb. We've already hinted and explained that taking a little bit too much curb with these cars, combined with the power, does send the rear of the car around, and we've witnessed a couple of people do that.
This section just here is what was being spoken about earlier in our driver interviews, where there's that short curb that's just quite easy to get on if you're not careful, and it ends quite quickly.
Thankfully, the curbs are not too high here as well. They're relatively flat curbs, but they still pay a hefty price if you don't treat them with respect.
That's where I struggled in the race and in qualifying. Being a predominantly touring car driver or saloon car driver, the sensitiveness of the open wheelers and not being able to attack those curbs, which is where you generate a lot of your pace in say the supercar and the Porsche. You can't do that in this car, and I really struggled with it. I just couldn't adapt enough for it.
Yeah, that's the difference between a touring car series and an open wheel series, isn't it, Brock? You've you can ride the curbs, you can take a lot of curb in some of those cars, and they just soak up the punishment. But these cars, not so much.
Yeah, it was a real struggle for me tonight.
As Grant English goes around just ahead of one of the other cars, but thankfully caution flag comes out, but it's without incident, so that car that he spun in front of can carry on.
They'll put pay to his hot lap. While we've been talking, Heathy has pumped in a very, very fast time.
He's pumped in a 10.4. And
10.4. It's not quite as fast as he managed in qualifying 1, where he was just thousandths of a second off of reaching the 109s, which I think might be a personal goal for him here.
I think
if he can be the only person in the 109s, he'd definitely like that badge of honour.
I think that carrot is dangling right in front of him, because the early pace that we saw at the start of qualifying 1 for race number 1 was a minute 11, and then we very quickly worked down to a minute 10, and Heath Dixon's got down to business very quickly and straight into the 110s. He's the only man currently in the 10s. The next best is Johnny, who's just popped up with a minute 11.2. But we've only had half the field set their times at the moment, as Brian Walsh comes down to set his time. Actually improves his time. He goes up to 9th.
We still have several of the front runners from the first race who haven't set a time. Jamie Snow hasn't set a time. Cory Ott hasn't set a time, and neither has Matthew Schwartz, who were all in the top 5 by the end of the top 7 by the end of the last race. So they will presumably. And Jamie Snow, I know, set a much better time by about 3/10 than what Heath has set so far. So the potential for someone to knock Heath off is there if he can't get another faster lap in.
That's right. Jamie just coming through the last turn now. He was on a lap and did abort it, because this time he's crossing now to represent as a 1 minute 21.5, which is nowhere near what we know he's capable of. He's going to go for it this lap by the look of it. Let's dive to our onboard as we take him through turn 1. And using a bit of the curb quite nicely. He's at chicane. Very, very tricky chicane off camber 2 and 3. And now the run down to the right hand of 4. And then this left long 180 degree left hander, almost like a double apex corner. Turn number 5, 6, and a little bit more curb. Using the curbs nicely, not taking too much, not being too overly aggressive. Here's the section that Cory Ott was talking about, this slow infield, turn 7 and 8. This is where Jamie lost it in the race, but it's very clean through there. Turn 9, that doesn't use the exit curb, actually doesn't use all the road either, so probably just looking to set a benchmark time, actually out on the marbles off the racing line there through 11, 12 and now 13 and 14. There's double apex corner again on the short shoot. Now through turn 15, holds it just holds the throttle, didn't go flat out, and he sets an 11.1, but we know he's capable of better than that, but he did make a couple of mistakes on that lap. We noticed him going into the marbles through that turn 11 and 12, 13 section. So
only good enough for 5th so far, but these tyres are still pretty good for the first several laps, so he'll be going in for it again and trying to improve on this lap time. And every lap you do around here, you can commit a little bit more and a little bit more. It will be in his head about the fact that the section of corners he's coming up to here in 7, 8, and 9 was where he spun. But hopefully he's able to overcome that, although he is giving the apexes quite a wide berth, which is not the fastest way around this racetrack, unfortunately.
And leaving a bit of time on the table by the sound of it. We've actually just had a one or two, I think there's actually just one new runner join us. This is Mike Frost, who we're watching at the minute, through the last turn. So the server count has gone up a little bit. Mike Frost's first time is 1 minute 15.4. Good for 13th place, but he'll probably just feel his way into this session, having not taken part in race 1 and qualifying 1.
I will say as well, mate, that the track does grip up a lot towards the end of the session. Like in my qualifying session, I really struggled to get into the 11s for the first part, and then was able to hit a low 11 late in the session. So you will see the times drop dramatically as the guys rubber it up a bit more.
And that's definitely what we saw in qualifying number 1 2, Brock. We did see the time start out at around the low 11s, high 10s, and then by the end of the session we were almost down to we were tantalisingly close to a 109 by Heath Dixon, but he's still sat up and it goes. I mean, in actual fact, Matt Williams is only a 10th away from Heath's time at the minute. So Heath with a 1 minute 10.4 and Williams with a high 10.5, nearly a 10.6. And then we've got Nagel and Baker who have set both set 109s, and they're literally split by 0.005 of a second on the second row. But we're obviously only got nearly 6.5 minutes in this session to go. We've still got plenty of time for these guys to set some fast laps, especially for the likes of Jamie to come up and hopefully spoil the party.
I'm expecting Scruff to be fast in these cars. Scruff's a phenomenal go-kart driver, so he should have a lot of feeling in these, as opposed to, again, a touring car or a Porsche Cup car. I think this style of car will suit Scruff's natural style a lot better.
So for the viewers' point of view, Scruff happens to be which person, Brock?
He's Matt Williams.
That's Matt Williams. That's all right. So
yes.
Everyone's got a few nicknames here. Matt Williams is now we know him as Scruff, and Jamie's now just been given the name a couple of minutes ago. Or was it Snowball, I believe?
Snowballs, yes.
Matt Williams has come across the line. He's improved his personal best now. He's now within 0.08 of Heath Dixon, who is still in the garage, which is a display of what some would say would be confidence, others arrogance. I'm wondering if he's going to come out to try and better his lap time, because if he's not careful, Matt is going to get the better of him, and he'll sort of be caught with his pants down if he ends up not getting on the front row. Although, he figured it out from being second last race, so we'll see how that goes for him.
And you're saying Matt Williams had just shaved just a little bit off that time. We're just looking through the field as well. Johnny has also managed to pop up into the 1 minute 10.9 bracket, so he joins that cohort of Nagel and Baker also to set 1 minute 10.9s. Everybody on track at the moment apart from Voda and Dixon. So this is, oh look at this, we've got Matt Williams getting a bit of a slipstream, I might add, off his teammate there, but it didn't do anything for his time.
He got held up really badly through the last couple of sweepers by the car in front of him there. So
that car in front of him, I believe...
that one's Cracker, mate.
It's Cracker, yeah. So there's a couple of guys that are running the same livery. I think 2 or 3 drivers running the same liveries. So they are a little bit hard to spot. And also those liveries with the same car numbers. Matt Williams just shaving 0.007 of a second off his time in that first sector. So time is so tight to find on this circuit. You've got to be driving really, really well.
Well, I was just going to say, Heath Dixon has just poked his nose out of the pits, so obviously he is feeling a bit threatened by Matt Williams' pace. So we'll see if he's going to be able to improve his time. He's got 4 minutes left, so there'll be time for 2 or 3 laps.
He's got 4 minutes to do it. Has he got enough fuel on board? And what's he going to do? Is he going to go for a single flyer, or is he going to have enough fuel to run and do a bit more? Matt Williams actually just coming into the pits now. And we join
Johnny's
Heath Dixon.
on a good lap at the moment, mate.
So we're looking at Johnny Kerford here. He's on a good lap. He is. He's 7,300ths up on his PB. That's not going to be enough to threaten the top runners unless he can pull out a mega bit of time in this last turn.
He's kept it pinned through the last turn.
He's kept absolutely pinned. It's a 10.7, and his best is a 10.7. So it is a PB for him, but not enough to threaten the front row. Matt Williams coming in. Oh, no, it wasn't Heath Dixon. There was a car on the main straight that was very similar to Heath Dixon's. That's actually spun around and spun around and took out some billboards there.
Yeah, Grant English, he just held the power a bit too much there and wasn't quite able to put it through. Also, Matt Williams he's pushing hard as well. He's run wide in the first corner, so that'll put pay to that lap, unfortunately, for him.
Well, we're watching Heath Dixon at the minute. He's got 2 minutes 50 to improve his time and get away from the chasers behind as he comes down to turn 1. Now, turn 1's where he's been strong on the brakes all race long last race, and no exception there. That was beautifully done.
Jamie Snow's just gone fastest first sector.
The Jamie Snow is on the move. Now, he's on track at the minute. He's down at turn number 8, according to our screens, and Dixon's got a 10th and a bit on his PB.
While we're looking at Heath, Snow had a moment, but he held it together quite well. It's been an interesting battle to see. Oh, he's 4/10 up on his best. He's only 300ths down on Heath's time at the moment. As he comes into the final corner, we'll see if his time is able to eclipse that of Heath's, who's just coming through the second sector at the moment. And Snow gets second, but he's still 600ths away.
Heath Dixon
Heath
Dixon has nearly 2/10 on his own time as he comes through the last turn. Keeps it absolutely pinned. Nicely doesn't use the escape road, and he does a 10-3, so he gets away a little bit, but Jamie is still right there, and Jamie looks like he's pressing on, but he's already a 10.5 down on his PB on this lap. Now Heath hasn't backed off either; he's still going. So there's going to the two front runners, or the front row occupants from the last race, are still duking it out for the front row positions.
It looks like Jamie Snow has gone back into the pits, but Matt Williams is out there on a fast lap still as well. Probably enough time for the laps they are on and one more for these front runners to see who's going to take pole honours.
Yep.
Matt Williams has actually been dropped back to the second row because of that excellent lap from Jamie, Jamie will be done for the session now, but Matt Williams definitely has a chance. He's down on this lap though, so that is not ideal for him.
He's down on this.
He'll have to make this next lap count.
He's down on his PB, but not by very much. And as he comes to the line, he's still third. This will be his last lap. Johnny's actually just popped up into second, so that puts a cat amongst the pigeons. Jamie thought he was safe on the front row, but Johnny Kerford has managed to move up into second with a 10-3. He's not that far behind Heath, so Heath was right to be cautious and go out again.
Heath has gone back to the garage, but Johnny is still pushing, and he has time for one more lap, and he is up on his personal best. He was only 200ths down on Heath, and his first sector was 1/10 worse than Heath, so if he can find some time in this middle and last sector, although he did run a bit wide, he has a chance of...
we've just seen Matt Williams go. We've just seen Matt Williams lose it, so there goes any chance he has of moving up the grid. He was pushing hard as well. He had a PB in Sector 1, but couldn't go on with it. So the only man that can potentially spoil the front row here is Johnny, and he's coming through Sector 2 at the minute, and has lost some time.
He's down by 2/10.
He's a 10th off his own PB, but he's 2/10 off of Heath, and he's finished. He's given up on the lap. But a front row nonetheless is a very, very, very encouraging sign. He was very quick in that first race, and maybe just getting a bit more feeling from the car. So unfortunately, it doesn't look like we've actually got a new runner that's actually joined the field here as well. Now, how do you pronounce this one? Renzolindo.
That'll do.
I think my English is good enough to pronounce Renzolindo. I'm not sure we're going to be calling his name a bit. He actually hasn't set a time, so probably a very late comer.
We might just shorten it to Renzo.
Renzo, I think, is probably more appropriate. I think you're probably right.
That is one of the ones where we're going to have to create a standard series for this league, because or our own custom series or a password, because I reckon he's a scraggler from overseas.
Have you actually had very many of those guys come across?
No, this is the only series we run that is set up as stock content, and we've got it just set up as Formula 3 Brazil. So pretty much anyone with a game can jump on our server. So I just got a sneaky suspicion he's one of those.
You're probably right. Well, just like the first race, the pole sitter is Heath Dixon. Unfortunately, we didn't get into that minute 9 bracket like we were hoping to, but it is still a hell of a quick time from Heath Dixon of 10-3.
It was a much closer qualifying session this time. We had the top 4 were covered by 2.5 of a second, but the top 2, so only 200ths between Heath and Johnny, then 2/10 back to Jamie, and then only 2/10 between Jamie and Matt Williams. So it's really anyone's race at this point, because we've seen people make mistakes with Jamie, we've seen people hold their nerve with Heath, but anything can happen in the second race. Heathy is looking for a complete sweep of this weekend with 2 wins and 2 pole positions. Let's see how well he goes.
Now, I don't believe there's any points for the pole positions, is there? There's just the points for the wins?
Just points for the wins, mate. Speaking of points, nice segue. I do have the points from race 1 now. So, Heath Dixon, he's got 20 points. Johnny's on 17. Cory Ott on 15. Jamie Snow on 13. Greg Nagel, nice to make an appearance on 11. Baker on 10.
I'm just watching on the grid here. We've just seen, sorry to cut you off, Brock. We've had a car run into the back of one of the other cars on the circuit, and that's caused a front wing to go flying and a rear wing to go flying. We'll try and find out who those cars are, but that's not ideal.
That's not what you want.
No, we had a bit of we was getting ready for the warm-up lap, and a few guys just got a bit concertinaed up. Who have we got? It's Grant English has lost his rear wing, but who was he run into by?
So it looks like there was a bit of checking up as the formation lap
It's
started.
Rambo. It's actually Rambo.
Yeah, Baker came to a complete stop. Grant English just nudged the back of him, and Rambo was already getting up to speed and was completely unsighted, and there was really nothing he could do there. I believe we might be going for a restart because this is not the way we want to start a race.
Yeah, there's debris on the main straight, and we did see a red flag thrown at the Albert Park round of the V8, it's not the V8 Supercars anymore, just the Supercars series a couple of weeks ago, where there was an absolute calamity on the front straight, and did force a restart.
So Matt Williams is the admin for this one, so it's going to be his call on whether or not he wants to restart this or not.
All right, and there's Grant English. He's actually got it. There's a complete wing failure and suspension damage as well. So there is Matt Williams, as we were speaking of. He's in fourth. Now the question is whether or not they will do a restart, but they're coming back around to the grid.
It looks like we are. Matt Williams has pulled his car into the pit, so he'll be getting ready to restart the race.
All right, so it looks like the red flag has been thrown for this race, and we will get a restart. And you are correct. It looks like the restart is taking place.
So yeah, that was an interesting turn of events there. We'll not the usual thing that happens with the crash on the formation lap, or even the start of the formation lap. But yeah, it was just a couple of cars were slower to get away than others, and then that concertina effect. It's just like when you're in traffic and someone gets on the brakes and then someone else does and someone else does, and the person who's all the way at the back, who's already up to speed, doesn't have the time to move out the way, and into the back they went.
You're right. It's very rare to see a crash on or a little bit of an accident on the formation lap. I just happened to be cycling through the field just to see where everybody was positioned and just to see everyone get away cleanly from the start. And all of a sudden, what we saw on the screen was a little bit of a concertina effect. You're right. There were a few people that were slow away and checking up, and we just couldn't quite catch who it was that backed into who. But now we know that the two culprits were Rambo running into the back of Grant English.
Rambo's had a bit of trouble racing with us of late, and he's had a bit of contact in the Super Series, and yeah, in this one as well. Not an audacious start by him.
No, he had a relatively good race in race number 1 in the Super Series on Thursday night, but then the race number 2, he did make a mistake on the exit of Ascari, and then came back onto the track in a very unsafe manner. And I think it was in front of Matt Williams, and was actually roasted by him for it, but hopefully that's all been quietened down since that incident, and those two guys are actually racing in this race, so let's hope they don't come to blows again, or we could be in for one hell of a fireworks display. Well, they're gridding up again for another formation lap, and we would hope that this one is going to be a lot cleaner than the last, but we'll soon find out. There's Heath Dixon sitting on the pole. 2 poles for him. He'll be feeling confident. He's got Johnny for company this time instead of Jamie Snow. Jamie not far behind. He's right behind Heath. But Heath will be looking for a much better start than what he had last time. You get a very tardy start. And the second place man had the whole shot into turn 1. So here we go. And everybody tends to be away cleanly. There's a few server glitches we're just looking at here on the screen, but everybody tends to be away nice and clean.
I had my eye in the back of the grid there and just watched Voda almost spin into the side of David Keane off the start line there.
Also, we nearly had another incident, but we're just looking through the field here.
looks like Rambo is not going to be taking the start and be starting from the pit lane.
Okay, so I think, yeah, you are correct. We're looking at the timing screens here, and it does show P, so that says to us that he is in the pit. Actually, it says he's been disqualified. We've just got a race control message up. He's been disqualified. Now, we don't know what that's for.
He passed the pit exit line, and I guess he didn't notice that that we'd gone to the race with the restart, and so he'd gone to track and went past the pit exit line, which is a disqualification when you're starting from the pit lane.
That is correct. It is a disqualification. You must wait at the pit lane. It's actually a little bit deceiving in the pit lane because there is a line that runs across the pit lane, which I believe is where the start-finish line is on the track, but then it's beyond that there is another, the actual control line for the pits. But
yeah, so despite all this excitement, we should probably quickly go through the starting order.
We do. We have Heath Dixon starting at pole, and Johnny Kerford right behind him, and then we've got Jamie Snow and Matt Williams. Next we've got Nagel and Baker will be occupying row 3, and Cory Ott starting 7th, a bit further down than what he would have liked to start. Grant English, after that little incident at the start line, starts 8th. We've got Luke 9th. Rambo was 10th, has been disqualified, which means David Keane and Matthew Schwartz will actually have a clean pit box ahead of him. Then we've got Mike Frost, Cracker, Brian Walsh, and Voda. Voda looks like he's just ahead of the guys he was just ahead of the guys on the warm-up lap. Now, it took a long time for us to get the field set and ready to go after the warm-up lap, but here we go. The revs are rising. We're watching the pole setter. He got a tardy start again. That's not very, very good. Jamie's got him on the outside, and Johnny's got him on the inside, and they've swooped past him. Jamie's going to the inside here, and looks like he might have the whole shot into turn number 1, and no, he doesn't. Johnny keeps it together on the outside. Jamie slots into second, and Greg Nagel's actually gotten past Heath Dixon as well. That's an awful, awful start for the pole sitter. He's gone backwards. We've got someone through the grass as well by the look of it, covering back to the track. It looks like it's been relatively uneventful and relatively clean, but Heath Dixon, actually, no, Cory Ott's gotten past Heath Dixon as well. Dixon down to 5th. This is an atrocious start to race 2 for the pole sitter.
That was Williams through the grass, mate.
So Matt Williams through the grass, and Heath Dixon struggling to pull that car up for turn number 7 and 8, and he's got a lot of work to do. He'll be absolutely kicking himself.
So I believe it was Brian Walsh who's going through the grass at the back. He's lost his rear wing, and he's off on the side of the track now, most likely going to retire from this race.
So Brian Walsh, he was one of the ones that lost his rear wing at the formation lap when when the red flag was thrown as well. So hasn't had the best of starts to race number 2. But the race leader is currently Johnny Kerford. He's on his way to the line. He's got a 7/10 of a second margin on Jamie Snow at the minute. Jamie trying to get into that slipstream, but just a little bit too far back for it to take effect. Johnny seems to have got up to speed with these cars really, really quickly.
It seems like Jamie has gone from being the hunted to being the hunter now. He's going to be the one applying pressure to Johnny, and it'll be interesting to see how Johnny handles it, because this is the first time he's been in the lead of a race so far, and with a wonderful start, or it was less a wonderful start for him, more a poor start from Heath, who just went backwards. He got passed by Johnny and by Jamie, who had a brilliant start, it must be said. And just behind them, we've got Ott and Nagel battling for position.
Yeah, we've just seen a change of position there. We've just seen Cory Ott manage to get past at turn 7 and outbraked Greg Nagel into turn 7, and then had the clean line through turn 8. And now he's going to be hot on the trail of Jamie Snow. And now Heath is starting to catch up a little bit more to Greg Nagel as he tries to recover from that dreadful start. Oh, we've actually just seen someone go through the grass. Was that Cory Ott? No, it was another car that looked very similar to Ott's car that went through the grass.
Yeah, that is Walsh, who is still coming into the pits from losing that rear wing. So he's a lap down already, and he's just getting his car serviced now. So that's definitely race done for him. Okay.
Greg Nagel fending off from Heath Dixon, who was trying to go deep under brakes, but manages to hold him, and we commence lap 3.
Knowing Greg as well, mate, he's going to have a bit of trouble passing Greg, because he's a hard-nosed racer, and he's not going to give up his position anytime quickly.
We have seen Greg
got to be careful being a hard-nosed racer in this series, because it is very easy to lose your nose, and that's not what you want.
No, we've seen Greg occupy a couple of very, very respectable positions in the Porsche series back in Guyana a couple of weeks ago. He was in a well-deserving 4th place. So you are right, he's a hard-nosed racer. He likes to get in there, and when he makes himself very, very difficult to pass. Heath managing to keep tabs on him here, only ahead by 3/4 tenths of a second as we come through the penultimate corner. And now through the last corner, and Greg's got 4 tenths on him. Heath takes, massive.
Oh, big crash from Matt Williams.
Yeah, Matt Williams had just gone back to catch him, and he's lost his front wing, so he completely lost it off the last turn, and he's unfortunately going to have to do a lap with an entire front wing missing. He'll have to watch out for the guys behind him, and actually Matt's gone straight on at turn number 1.
Very deep there.
Very, very deep.
He's at the worst possible place to lose his wing. He went way too wide in the final corner. He turned in, and the car just understeered, and he surrendered to the corner there. He's no front wing on these cars isn't the worst, but it is still a good 3 seconds a lap that you lose. Plus, he's gone straight on these. Yeah, he's not having the best time of it.
They are pretty damn near impossible to drive without the downforce. He's going to have to just keep a cool head, which isn't in his repertoire normally, but just putt it around and hopefully go into a disaster recovery once he puts a new wing on it.
We're just looking at Mike Frost here on the screen. He's right up behind Luke and has moved up 3 spots from his original starting place. Granted, one of them was through disqualification of Irambo, the other one through the attrition suffered by Matt Williams. And he's battling away here, and very respectable for a latecomer into the servo. Missed out on race number 1, but he's got David Keane right behind him at the minute. Keane's very, very close. He's got a slipstream here. Is he going to pull out and have a look at him down to turn 1? He's on the inside. Keane thinks better of it and gives the corner to Frost.
I think David's probably going to get our most improved racer this week. He's been really, really good of late. He came in and struggled with the pace of the series in his first couple of races, but he's putting in the time, putting in the practice, and he's certainly finding his feet out there. He keeps, again, level-headed racer, so he's a good one to have in the series.
We like those guys, the level-headed racers. They know when to attack, when to defend, and where they can let people through, and they generally give everybody around them a decent amount of space. And you're right, he's moved, as we said before, he's moved up 3 spots, and he's going to look for an opportunity if one presents itself, with Luke just ahead of him as we go back through the field. Matthew Schwartz is also another one that we've been keeping our eye on in this race, and in the last race he moved up a handful of spots as well, so came in, one of the guys we haven't seen appear on the other series to date, and kept his nose clean. He's up 4 positions in this race. I think he was up either 3 or 4 positions in from his starting spot in the last race as well, so a good job from him at this stage as he navigates turn 1 on lap 6.
I might just, we've got a bit of a lull here, mate. We're going to take a quick opportunity in regards to Jamie Snow and make an announcement for the Short Shift podcast team. Jamie's going to be driving for us in the Super Series, so he becomes our 5th driver with myself, Brendan Hobson, Aaron Thomas, Matthew Williams, and now Jamie as well. He's got a special livery car. He gets the Le Mans go-karting complex car, so he's got a red, white and black car moving forward in the series. And that's the Le Mans go-karting that's based out here in Dandenong in Victoria, if I'm correct. Correct, mate, yeah. Absolutely. So, addition to the online series, a lot of us also do a car series across Melbourne called the Elite Hire Car Championship. We chose a direct route through Short Shift to support these venues whilst we're racing online, so you'll see me. I've got the high voltage car. Brendan Hobson has the drive go-karting car, which will be opening later in the year. Aaron's also got a drive car. Snowy or Snowballs will be running the Le Mans car, and so Scruff runs the Karting Madness car. So
wonderful to know. We'll keep an eye out for those liveries with the upcoming Porsche series, or the Super Series as it's called, in the next couple of weeks. We look forward to, actually saw a preview of that car the other day, and it is a beautifully livery car.
Sorry to go across you, Nether, but Heath and Nagel are going at it hammer and tongs. They've been side by side for the last couple of corners.
And we've just cut back to that battle, and you're right, Heath Dixon was side by side there. Looks like he's just lost a little bit of touch with Nagel here. So did he make a mistake somewhere along the line?
He got alongside, but it was the worst line through the corner. So Greg was able to just drive out of it and get the line on him. But you know that Heath will be, as he goes wide, but you know that Heath will be trying to get on him because he wants that double. He wants the 2 poles, 2 wins.
Well, he wants that double, but he's unfortunately running out of laps to do so. He's down in 5th, and it's now on lap 8. So this is the halfway point, and he's still some 3 or 4 seconds off the lead. He needs to get a wriggle on, and as Brock pointed out a little earlier, Greg's going to make that car awfully wide and difficult for Heath to get past.
He's going to have to make his move through the first, probably turn 1 and through the first third of the circuit, offline through the last part of the circuit. It's almost impossible to go offline. It is so slippery, and it absolutely destroys your grip for the next couple of corners once you hit the marbles as well. So he's going to have to be patient and keep his nose clean through the last third, and then hopefully get a run up the main straight. Yeah,
we can actually see just from the broadcast at the moment, there is quite an awful lot of marbles on the circuit. So if you get offline, you're going to pay the penalty. Heath is right close to Greg Nagel at the minute. He's only 3.5 tenths away. He's got to get a good exit out of this last turn if he wants to get a drag down the main straight and have a chance at turn 1. And he's only just under 4 tenths away. Is the slipstream powerful enough? We know he's good under brakes into turn 1, and he has a look, but he's not close enough to make it stick. And
he's definitely just giving Greg. He's showing Greg his front wing. He's saying, "I'm here, and I plan on coming through soon." Yeah, that might be a sighter. So if he can hold on to him this lap, he will probably try and put a stamp on it and send it for the next lap.
Greg's tyres will start to be feeling some pinch now as well. They're 9 laps in, and they'll be very second-hand set of rubber right now. So hopefully, for Heath's sake, he can put some pressure on him. Greg makes a mistake, he can sneak it through, but Greg doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He's very, very competitive racer.
Speaking of pressure, it looks like the front 3 of Ott, Snow, and Johnny are all still very close to each other. There's only a second and a half covering the 3 of them.
They're getting closer.
Yeah, there could be. This is still anyone's race because, as Brock said, the tyres are going to start to go, and that means that people might make more mistakes, as we saw happen to Jamie in the first race. He was so close to getting that win and just lost it on the second last lap. So it'll be interesting to see if he can force Johnny to do the same thing, and if they come together, then Ott is in the prime position for a win here.
We just saw on the screen pop up a minute ago that the best lap for Matt Williams was a 1 minute 10.7, and that is actually the fastest lap of this race, the 10.7. The leading guys have all done their best laps, the 10.8s and 10.9s, the top 3. Not the same pace of the fastest laps that we saw in the first race. The fastest lap was owned by Heath Dixon, a 1 minute 10.4 in race number 1. But for most of that race, he wasn't doing it consistently enough, or doing low lap times consistently enough to threaten Jamie until Jamie made a mistake and then was let Heath through for the win. But we later found out from Jamie that it was a bit of a tyre issue toward the end of that race. So, as Brock was talking about before, with some of the tyres starting to feel a pinch right about now, the opportunity to make mistakes suddenly gets a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger each lap. And as we see Cory Ott just rooster tail through the grass at turn number 14. So these guys may be inclined to make an odd mistake here or there as the tyres start to go away.
These tyres feel like glass as they get worn. You're using almost a gear less through the faster corners than you are when they're fully gripped up. So you're going to see a lot of guys just nursing that to get through from now.
They'll have to be careful with going down a lower gear as well than usually what they should be. A little bit too much torque, and the back will come around on these cars very, very quickly. Just keeping an eye on the track map too, we've got the race leader is very, very quickly approaching. I think it's Matt Williams, who's just coming through 8 and 9 now, so we could be having a lap traffic situation present itself, which could upset the balance at the front of the field depending where they encounter the lap traffic. And Matt knows better and to let these guys through at the right time. But hopefully they can get through cleanly, and they've got 4 laps, just over 4 laps remaining, and it does look like they will catch them before this race is over.
The only thing is there is.
Oh, we've just seen Johnny goes very wide. And
this will be interesting coming down to the main.
Yeah,
straight.
he's lost a
You'll
bucket
need
load
who's
of
on
time.
speed.
He's lost an absolute packet load of his lead, over half his lead. He was 8/10 clear. And, oh, look at this. Ott's got a slipstream on Snow, and Snow's trying to get the slipstream from Johnny, and this front field has closed up quite significantly now.
This is where Cory's going to come into his own. He's a brilliant iRacer. He's a brilliant track racer. He's going to be all over Jamie Snow right now, and Jamie, more inexperienced of the two, he's going to be feeling the pinch right now as well.
And oh, we have to look in the back there. You know, Snow manages to hold it, but Cory Ott had a look at him through turn number 5. Jamie left in the room, but he had the drive on the exit to keep going. Jamie may be feeling the pinch a little bit with those tyres again. Oh, as we see a little smoke show coming from Johnny at the front.
And as all these three are battling, this is bringing back, this is bringing Greg and Heath back into the fight. The gap, which was almost 2 seconds between them, is now down to a second. So really, any one of these 5 can still win this race. Yes. And depending on how the lap traffic goes, although I think they both have pitted because of damage and have fresher tyres, but it will still be quite interesting to see. The last lap of this race could be interrupted by lap traffic, and it could be quite interesting, although Johnny has pulled out a small gap again after that mistake on the last lap.
He has indeed pulled out a gap. He got his head down, he lost the gap, he put his head down, and he's got that back out again as Cory goes a little bit wide at turn number 1.
Being a bit cheeky with track limits is Cory, but we'll see if that comes back to bite him, if he's been getting warnings for that or not.
We have actually got some lap traffic coming up as well. We've got some lap traffic coming up now. We've got Voda, who's on his way down to, I think it's turn number 7, 8 and 9 that you just see in the foreground on the shot there. So this will potentially Oh, here we go. Jamie's lost it again. Jamie's lost it again, and Greg's gone straight into him. Oh, dear. That was very, very unfortunate. Jamie lost at exactly the same point, and I think probably on almost exactly the same lap that he did in race number 1, and that's a horror mistake for Jamie. He's trying to recover there, and as a result, unfortunately, Greg's lost his front wing, so he's going to have to either pit to get home. Baker's now moved up into 4th place. That's a bit of a surprise. He was going along all by himself quite nicely.
Jamie has retired.
Jamie's retired. And Heath Dixon is now getting past the lap traffic in Voda without too much trouble down the main straight. And now Cory Ott's really got the bit between his teeth. He goes for a dive at the turn number 1. Johnny leaves him the room. Johnny maintains the position, but Cory's now on a charge.
Cory's definitely got the eyes on it at the minute. It's unfortunate that Jamie spun there because the move set up by Cory was absolutely brilliant.
Oh, just a little tap. There's a little tap. Oh, Cory's had a little tap. Cory's got given Johnny Curvett a little tap, and he's got through there. He'll have to give that place back.
Cory will redress that.
He'll redress that position, but look who's behind them. And it's Heath Dixon, and he's looking, and they're side by side here, and they touch again, and they touched again. And now Heath comes through on the inside. Heath has got at the inside line, and he somehow, the pole sitter is now back to the front with a lap and a half to go. This is absolutely incredible.
This is unbelievable. Heath was in 5th position a lap and a half ago, and we've got only a lap and a small amount to go, and suddenly he's in 1st. What happened there was Ott was quite ambitious, let's say, going into turn 5, gave Johnny a nudge with seam wide, and while trying to readjust the position, he was trying to readjust the position while losing no time, which is very hard to do, especially when you've got Heath breathing down your neck, and Heath has just taken advantage of it and has come through into 1st with 1 lap to go.
It is the last.
Incredible.
It is the last lap. Last lap sponsored by Short Shift Podcast. Heath Dixon has a 7/8 of a second lead, and he's pressing on. He knows those tyres are hurting, but he's got to make sure he keeps that gap. He's actually got a bit of lap traffic ahead of him. Who are we looking at on our screens here? That looks like it's Cracker that he's coming up to. Johnny's gone wide at turn number 2. Sorry, not turn number 2, turn number 5, I'm sorry. And he's let Cory Ott through, but the battle's not over. We're still watching it. Johnny's on the outside, but he's going to have to give that... Oh, another little tap. Again, the same spot on the 2 laps. And Johnny goes through. Now, that surely is going to have to be readdressed. That was a tap, and he did gain advantage from that.
I'm not sure if that was actually a tap from Johnny, because Cory was already losing the car, and Johnny gave him a tap as he was losing it. So I feel Johnny would have got past anyway. I don't think he'll need to redress that one.
We'll have a debate about that at the end of the race. But fortune favours the wicked, and Heath Dixon's taking advantage of what could only be described as absolute luck. And he wins race 2, so he has done the double as we were calling it, the poles and the wins for each race, but he can consider himself very, very lucky on both races.
He is lucky, but you make your own luck in this game, Nether, and he was there ready to take the opportunity when it presented itself, and present itself it did. That was a very good drive by Heath to be there and to stay out of the carnage that happened those last couple laps as the tyres got old. He kept out trouble, and being there at the end doesn't matter who crosses the line first, as long as you're the one who crosses first.
That's right. And we should also point out, Johnny did manage to hold off Cory Ott for second place in that race, Cory finishing third, and Baker fourth, a very respectable fourth, considering that the open wheel is not his best cup of tea or his best race in car.
Also, a mention for Mike Frost, who ended up in fifth.
Absolutely.
Positions on debut.
On debut in the second race, and with the best lap too of a 12.4, a very respectable lap time. But obviously,
let's just throw it. We've got Heathy has come into the box here. Heathy, you
What
had
is going
what can
on?
only be you can have what can only be described as a horror start, and you're in fifth for a good chunk of the race, and then with 2 laps to go, it just all cracks off in front of you. What were you thinking? What was going through your head as all that was happening?
Oh mate, not a lot ever goes through this head. It was just stay out of trouble and wait, which is, as you know, as my usual plan of attack, is to wait for people ahead to make a mistake. And the longer the race went on, I thought, I don't know if it's going to happen, but there we go.
mate, absolute luck. I called it in the box, absolute luck, because you were sitting there. Greg was making that car as wide as he could make it, and then
It was doing a very good job.
It was doing a very good job of it, and then Jamie around at the same point on the circuit, and probably almost on the same lap that he did in race number 1, and by pure luck, unfortunately, Greg runs into him, and you gain 2 positions, and then the same thing almost happens a lap later, and then you're back to the lead. What went through your mind at that point? That almost all your Christmases had come at once, I would imagine.
Sorry, I'm doing a shoey. You asked me. Yeah, just I saw cars going everywhere, and I thought I just have to stay out of trouble. And the old iRacing training came back to me. Slow down and don't try to power through the incidents. So I just managed to get around the spin, got in the inside of Johnny. We did touch a little bit, but I figured it was fair. And I just managed to get on through, got on the power earlier than he did, got ahead, and just had to stay ahead, really.
We've got Jamie in here as well now. Jamie, once again, another promising race, and this time unfortunately ending in a DNF, almost the same spot and the same incident again, except this time there was someone there who ran into you, unfortunately. Was it just the same thing as the last time, a case of the tyres starting to go away and just a bit too much power down?
No, I think this time I think there might have been a little bit of a tap there. It was hard to tell, but with everything going on, I just missed my braking point a little bit, and that little trip into the grass there was just enough to throw me off. And then when I saw someone coming up the inside trying to pass me there, it just got on the power a bit too hard and sent it around. So, like I said at the end of race 1, I'm going to end up with a bit of a reputation for doing well at the start and then throwing it all away.
It's unfortunate for you, mate. We're definitely feeling for you up here in the box. But it's you've been, apart from a couple of that one spot on the track that was just your bogey corner, basically. You've been racing quite well, and hopefully we'll be seeing a lot more of you at the pointy end soon.
Yeah, thanks. That corner was definitely a struggle the entirety of both races. I felt like I was starting to catch Johnny there for a little bit, and that seemed like that's where he was getting away from me a little bit as well. So, but we live and we learn. Go out and do it again next time.
We're expecting more of short shift drivers there, Jamie. So make sure those mistakes don't become a habit, mate.
That's all right. This race I don't have the colours on, so this one's a buy. But
yeah, we'll let you get away with that one because Matt Williams made a few mistakes as well, and I sat out the second race. So
not the best race for the short shift boys in this particular occasion, and obviously Hobson not here as well. But I believe, is he actually taking part in the F3 series, or is he going to stick to the tin tops, Brock?
No, he's sticking to the tin tops as well, mate. So clearly we've got a niche in our drive ups. Open wheel drivers.
Looks like I'm going to have to carry the team. Jeez.
That's it, mate. It's all on you.
Well, it's all on you, Jamie. Bad luck. You were very, very strong all race, but you're right. You're going to have a reputation one way or the other. From what we've seen, it's a promising start to the races that we've seen you drive in so far. But I guess, as you were saying, you've only had a wheel for a very short period of time, and we want to see you up there and making a good fist of all the championships that you're racing in. So we'll look forward to the next race that you partake, and best of luck.
Thanks, guys.
I have some news as well, guys, just before we go into anything else, that Cory Ott copped a 20-second post-race penalty there, so he's moved down to 4th, which moves Baker into 3rd.
All right, so that's a podium for Baker. So he's one of the guys that's come across from the ARW League. He's racing in most of the AMS Australia series, and a debut podium visit for him. So a very good result for Baker. So I would take it, Brock, that probably would have been for one of the incidents that was involved between himself and probably Johnny.
Yeah, contact with Johnny just after the course crew was deemed. He tried to readdress it, but his redress wasn't really a redress. It was only a half redress. He didn't let him pass properly. So
yeah, we saw
it. 2016 moment there.
Yeah,
that's it.
We saw it. We saw it side by side when he was trying to redress the position. I think he probably had it in the back of his mind because Heath was behind him as well. That he only wanted to let Johnny pass. He didn't want to let Heath pass. But in that situation, when we've seen this before, I think it was Mark Webber. In the Formula 1 days where he had to redress position, but the car that he had to redress position to was behind one he was battling for position with, and he ended up having to let them both through. There's no two ways about it. It had to be done, and it didn't look proper from what I could see on the screen either.
Speaking of Cory, we do have him in the box here now. Cory, you had a pretty good race, but just seems like towards the end there, as you were pushing some of the front runners, there was just a little bit of contact, and then while trying to redress, it sort of handed it to Heathy on a platter. How do you feel about it and the 20-second penalty?
Well, going to the turn 1, that lap, I was like, okay, I could send it on him, and I'm looking back at it, if I did, it would have been a clean overtake and I would have won the race, but no, I just didn't have didn't really have the ability to, and got down to the hairpin, and I was trying to set him up for a little bit of an undertake on him, and just he was slower in than what I expected. I tried to slow it up, not hit him, and hit him, turned him around, and I tried to actually drive into his left front to push him back, and that sort of worked. I don't know if it gave him any steering damage, but yeah, while trying to pass him, I tried to let him go only, but the next corner I actually hit the grass by accident, so you let him and Heathy go, and yeah, just when I saw the 20-second penalty, I was like, right, I had to try and push as hard as I can to stay in the top 5. So yeah, 4th place after what was going to be a win. I'm just gotta look back at it and see what's gonna happen next week, anyways.
A little bit philosophical there, Cory. So I guess you're taking the positives out of the race in terms of your pace, how well you were battling at the front there, managing to hang on to Jamie and to Johnny for most of the race, and I guess learn from your mistakes.
Yeah, just it's what you got to do really after a race like that. Yeah, you were. I would have won the race. I had the pace to do it. I did a move that could have done it, and just all fell into Heathy's hands by the look. So yeah, we'll look forward to Thursday. Hopefully, if I can make it. So
Thursday is our supercars night, from what I understand. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
That is. So we're going to be going down to what some people have described as a lamb chop, but I think it's actually, from my personal opinion, it looks more like a lamb cutlet to me. The Symmons Plains Raceway Circuit. Now, we did see a bit of calamity in the Porsche race that was held there, or the Super Series race that was held there. I think it was nearly a month ago. We're going to end up with probably close to 26 runners on the track, and there's going to be a reputation, I think, for very, very close encounters around that entire circuit, so we'll definitely look forward to that.
That should be a pretty exciting race, actually, because I think the guys race the supercars quite well, and hopefully, Corey, you can make it, mate, because you're a bit of a jet in those things, and, mate, we were singing your praises when things went a little bit awry tonight, because we thought your setup on Jamie was pretty good and pretty fair. It's just a little bit of a brake lock-up, which cost you some points, unfortunately, mate.
Yeah, just I honestly I hit the brakes about maybe 20 meters earlier than what I thought, and I was thinking, right, I'm gonna, I thought he was gonna turn into me there for a second, but yeah, it just didn't really work out at the end. So yeah, hopefully if I do make it to Thursday night at the Lamb Chop Raceway, hopefully I can drive around there well.
I'm sure you'll be good, mate. And so far, when you've turned up, pretty exceptional, and you're more than welcome on the grid, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We've got Stairs, who's been watching these races unfold, I think enthralled in the pit lane, to be honest, because that's the only way you can describe race 2 as thoroughly enthralling. What's been your take on the 2 races and the night overall so far, Stairs?
Well, in those final laps, I don't think I've clapped like that since Daniel Ricciardo won in Hungary. It was a hell of a finish, and as being in the pit lane and not having to be neutral, I was very much barracking for Heathy in that. So well done, Heathy, on your 2 wins. It was fantastic to watch.
Thank you very much.
And with Heathy's 2 wins, he is a clear leader in the point standings for the Super Series, given we've only had 2 races. I think, Brock, have you got the points there, or are you still working through the maths?
I will be 1 second, mate, and just getting them now. Just removing the if error code, and we'll be getting there.
Oh, the old Excel if error code. No, we're pretty confident that Heath is going to be the man at the front, but
I'll be on perfect 40.
Perfect 40 points. So
yeah, Heath is dominating this one at the moment. So he's getting a bit of a winning habit in our series at the moment. Heath,
won the GT3 race in Bathurst last Easter, I believe.
Yes,
yeah,
becoming a concern.
Yeah.
So Heath is.
I'm getting used to the taste of champagne. So.
More shoeies.
Habit, you have to keep buying those little bottles of champagne.
And more pairs of shoes to go with it.
Yeah.
So I might just run through the top 5 guys. So Heath Dixon on 40 points, perfect weekend with a couple of poles and a couple of race wins. Johnny is in second. He has collected 2 seconds, so he's on 34 points. So Heath's not dominating as much as we'd probably expect there. Cory Ott needs to drop a position there. Let me just change that now. Baker gets 3rd. So Cory stays in 3rd place in the championship. He's on 28 points. Baker on 25 points, and Matthew Schwartz there is new guy to the series, but he's racing nice and clean. So
he did.
Fast, but he's doing nice and clean racing as well.
He was a very, very clean racer. He came, as you're saying, he's a debutant to the series, and I think at both stages he'd gained 3 or 4 positions in race 1, and he'd gained 3 or 4 positions in race 2 from where he started. So a good haul of points and very clean racing from him. So that's good to see a debutant do as well as he has and move up to 5th. I mean, granted it's only the first round, but we'd like to see him carry that through to the remaining races when they arise.
Just during that race, I managed to catch up with Rambo, who obviously the start of the race was as chaotic as the end of it, and we saw that Rambo and I think it was Baker came together on
Rambo and Grant English, actually. So
Grant English, sorry,
yep.
yeah. Apparently, when he came out of the pits for the restart, he still didn't have his wheels on. So he only had three wheels. Which led to him having to start from the pit lane, and then he crossed over the pit exit line, which disqualified him. So it's just a comedy of errors there that very, very bad luck indeed.
We were talking about the subject of the pit lane earlier in the night. It is a very unusual pit lane too, because before you exit the pit lane there is a white line that crosses the lane, and that's exactly the same point where the start-finish line is on the track, but it's a little bit further on from there is where the actual pit exit line is, and it's not marked, and if you do go over it, it's curtains for you.
And we saw issues during, I think it was the second qualifying session, or maybe even the first, when it looked like the session had started, and in fact it hadn't because of the traffic light on the exit of the pit lane.
It was green when it was still supposed to be red. And you were right, we were watching Rambo on screen at that point, and his first flying lap did not register, or the timer didn't start running. So of course, you're right, going over the line when should have going over the line did not make that happen. All right, so a frenetic pace of action, or a frenetic flurry of action for the first two races of the Formula 3 series, culminating in 2 poles and 2 wins to Heath Dixon. On behalf of Short Shift Podcast, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to the next race when that comes up on Thursday this week, which will be a Supercar Series race from Symonds Plains in Tasmania. So thank you to both De Brock and for joining us for Race 2, and Bagsy for joining for both Race 1 and Race 2 commentary. My name is Nether, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for having me, mate. Cheers.